Your mind is limitless. The possibilities are endless. Awaken Your Mind Magic shows you how you can dream limitlessly and live your life on a new level. Susan Kathleen speaks with ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives using the power of their mind.
Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside.
Abundance, prosperity, and success. There are no limits to what you can dream. Join Susan Kathleen on a journey into your dreams, making a difference and living life on your own terms. This is Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Hello and welcome everyone. My guest speakers today are Heather and Louise Reiss-James, and they are two fabulous ladies who I met in New Zealand just over a year ago at Lake Tahoe in North Island of New Zealand. We immediately gelled, and we had such a special bond, even although we'd never known each other before. Our mutual friend, the world-acclaimed Heather Ellis, introduced us, and we all ended up having fun. It was an evening. We were getting to know each other over dinner. It was lots of fun and like-minded immediately. And at the time, they were selling their home in New Zealand as they decided to move to Australia. And I was fascinated to find out what it was that they did for a living. So I recall Lou talking to me about her team, and I thought she was talking about a sports team or a work team. Well, they are her work team. They are her guides. They are both Heather and Lou have ascended. They're ascended masters. There are other world entities who help them with their work and with the people who visit them for help. And these incredible ladies are metaphysicians. Well, maybe somebody should say that word for me.
Metaphysicians? No.
Metaphysicians.
People who know about metaphysics.
Exactly. And quantum stuff. And teachers, they trans-channel communicators, public speakers, they're authors and modern-day shamans. So welcome, both of you. Welcome, Heather and Lou. It's so good to have you here today. Tell us about yourselves and what it is that you do.
Oh, Susan, thank you so much for having us on your podcast, and it's lovely to connect with you again in this medium. Yes, I remember that night very well. It was great fun. It was a very, very fun night. So you talked about our team. Well, it is our team, but Lou is the one that hears and connects very strongly with the energy. I often see them. In fact, when we first met, I'd go, "Can you see that?" She'd go, "No." And I said, "Well, what are they saying?" And she thought I was nuts. But that's a little bit how we met and what happened. But I knew these energies were around me, and they'd been around me since I'd been sick, actually. I got quite sick in my late 20s and had to self-heal. That's my journey. But I knew these energies or entities were around me, and they were good. I knew the good ones from the bad ones. Don't you worry. There is a difference. They were resonating. And so Louise brings through these wonderful entities, these energies. Everything's energy. So they're just working in a different dimensional space, just the door next door. And I'll let Lou explain about what she does.
So therefore, if I am Lou, that was Heather speaking. She forgot to introduce herself. I'll be very... Hello, my name is Louise. You can call me Lou.
Hello, Lou.
Yes, no, I mean, I remember that first connecting in with energy and sort of like having to put voice and imagery together and actually verbalize what I saw for Heather. I mean, it's a bit weird because I go back in my childhood when I was living in Rhodesia, growing up, it was a case of my sandpit was my favorite go-to place, and I had my friends there. And nobody else could see, but they were as real to me as you two sitting in the room right now. It was that real. And so, but because of, how I grew up and all the rest of it in the church, that kind of got squashed out of me. So when I met Heather again, and she was like, well, what's that? And who are they? And what are they saying there? My immediate thought, I must tell you, was she's nuts. I better make something up to keep her happy, because I didn't want to lose her.
Oh, bless you, darling. They are married, by the way, everyone, and they are so in love. They're the most delightful couple. And we will get on to that. You could tell everybody how you met as well.
We're in love at the moment.
And you're in love at the moment. And I'm really glad that you are. Oh, dear. That's wonderful.
So, Susan, you asked us, what do we do? What, tell us about ourselves and what do we do? So I'm going to kick the ball off a little bit. What do I do? I'm a mixed bag, licorice all sorts. I'm a channel of high energy information that comes through. I mentor people with the Ascended Masters assisting and working through me to help other people reach their goals, to unlock some of the things that are causing them to trip up and trigger them. And they work with me on the same things, because there's times where I'm sort of like triggered and I'm a complete mess, and the Ascended Masters work with me. So I know that the tools that they give work. I'm also an author. I've written a couple of books. I'm in the middle of writing another book in a series that I'm doing, which is the Lyran series. And I also work with energy healing. I have a particular beautiful energy that I call the Ancient One. She's from Telos, which is, people may know this as the world within our world, the center of the world. And she comes up and she works with people. She pulls things out. She sucks things out. She wafts her feather in the smoke around. She's really, really ancient. Beautiful, beautiful energy. And that's a little bit of what I do. So that's what I do. And it's been a gradual process of bringing this to the fore over many, many years. So, that's just a snapshot about me. And you can ask me any questions you want after Heather's had her what does she do.
I listen to Lou most of the time.
Oh, well done.
Okay, so Heather, what does Heather do? Well, I love the energy healing work. Really enjoy that. I'm also I'm clear aliens or clear scent. I have clear scent. I can smell energy, and it's become more obvious over the past few weeks, to be honest. So that it's quite interesting. I can smell when there's an energy around, and sometimes it's an unpleasant energy. And I'm not talking about a dog poo in the front lawn or anything like that. Though sometimes they can smell a bit like that, because I'll go, can you smell that? Lou goes, no, and everyone else goes, no. And I go into it and I realise there's an energy around. So that's an interesting thing. I don't know how I'm going to develop that, but I thought I'd just share that quickly because it's really fun. I'm also a mentor and a teacher and a public speaker. I've self-healed through many different things in my life, including the mental and emotional belief systems and traumas and blocks and things. The Ascended Masters had gifted us some wonderful tools, and I've also developed some of my own tools for healing. And that's been very helpful. And so together, Lou and I run workshops helping people, but I also can do one-on-one mentoring and assisting people in that regard as well. I love public speaking. We love presenting together. We often share our experiences. We do a demonstration of healing and bring through a galactic transmission. Lou failed to say that she's a channel, but she's actually a trance channel or a semi-trance channel, depending. Trance channeling, really, she steps completely out of the way and partners with one of the energies, trusted partnership. And she's very, very good at what she does. So what she says, or they speak through her, is nothing to do with Lou, and she won't remember a thing afterwards, which is quite good, really, because it means that the higher guidance is coming through for our clients or for our workshops. And moving on to workshops and retreats and tours, we're doing retreats too, and have run quite a few in New Zealand. But now that we're in Australia, we've got our first advanced retreat, self-mastery and consciousness, and Louise will be in channel for a lot of that retreat as well, and I'll be assisting, and that's over a 6-7 day period, and we're nearly fully booked. That's exciting.
Oh, that is exciting. It's wonderful. When exactly is it?
June the 4th to the 11th, and it's going to be in Cairns in the far north, which is a perfect time not to be in New Zealand or this part of Australia, to be up there in the beautiful tropics of Australia. Yeah, so we're going to be doing it there. 4th to
I've never been to Cairns. I think it's kind of tempting going there to be with you as well, because I know that it would be fascinating.
Oh, you'll have a ball, and you know it.
Oh, I do.
You'll learn heaps. We've got a big focus on who are you really, and not just the glyph sort of answers that people give, but we're going to be doing some guided meditation every morning, and we're going to be running some wonderful experiential workshops with the Ascended Masters and having fun, because that's what we like doing.
With a big capital F for fun.
Yeah.
With a big F, joy.
Yes,
all of that
joy
stuff.
And fun. And we've got a wonderful group. We know them all very well, except for two of the ladies we don't know that well. And I think we've got a space, probably one space left in-house. The next lot of people that come on will have to be in another accommodation building. So you just need to let us know. Now, the other
that's incredible.
It is incredible. The other thing that I do and is set up with Lou, I set up Tua Gaia. That's our international arm. And we're super excited because last year we were in our first international sacred sites tour to beloved Africa, where Louise is from Zimbabwe, and I know your affinity with South Africa also, Susan. And we spent 4 days with Michael Tellinger as well. For those of you that are listening that know of Michael Tellinger's work, you should have your ears pricked sharply now. So we're doing 21 days there in September this year, and it was such a life-changing trip last year. We decided to do it again, and we've definitely got interest. And we've got an early bird to the end of March.
And just following on with that, with last year's one, we've actually had somebody who was on the trip with us last year who's contacted us and said, are you doing it again this year? Because if you are, I'm booking to come again. I mean,
that's fantastic.
That is how much it really impacted this person.
This is a really healing journey. It's a life-changing healing journey.
Yeah.
It's really hard to explain. If you look at tourgaia.com, you'll see some of the reviews there. Yes, Susan.
What I wanted to ask you is, where exactly is this tour, and when, and what does it comprise? What are you doing on it?
That's the golden question, isn't it, really? I could direct you to our itinerary, but briefly, we're starting off in Johannesburg with a welcome dinner at one of the lovely hotels near the airport. Then we fly off to Zimbabwe the next day, where we spend some time in the Bulawayo district at the Great Zimbabwe Ruins. And we've got wonderful accommodation there for a couple of nights. If the rooms are as big as our house here, that's just beautiful, the old style. What are they called with the roofs?
It's a rondavel style apartment, and they're all the... at this particular, it's called the Ancient City Lodge. So it's built based on the design of the Great Zimbabwe ruins at the monument. And then, and that's more sort of Mshvengo area. And then you come back in closer to Bulawayo, which is the Matopus Hills.
So a lot of people don't know much about Zimbabwe except for Victoria Falls. I've been to Victoria Falls. That's wonderful. But you have not seen the real Zimbabwe till you start doing some real travel. And the people are amazing. They are the most generous, authentic,
heart people
I think I've ever met. They're incredible.
So coming from Zimbabwe, I know what a rondavel is. A rondavel is a round house, and it has a thatched roof with this beautiful African yellow grass.
That's right.
And it's very tall grass, and it's actually used, and they're incredible thatchers. They learnt thatching from Irish people. This is something that I discovered. From Irish people who had been shipwrecked off the shores of South Africa, and they could thatch roofs, and they taught the indigenous people how to thatch.
Wow.
Wow, that's
something I didn't know.
there we are. Well done.
No, because before they used to use sticks and clay to put them all together, and then when they made these houses. But anyway, apparently that's what happened. Whether it's an Irish tale or not, I've yet to find out. But I like that story. It's pretty cool.
I think that's a story we can dine out on. I like that. Very good. So the accommodation at Great Zim is wonderful. And we go up to the ruins with our own. So we have our own local guides, Indigenous and local guides on the ground, our own driver who will take us around, who's a friend of ours, also part of the Rainbow community. So very inclusive tour. We're very inclusive with everything we do anyway. And we will be experiencing the energy there. Now, the first time we went up there, we climbed up the mountain 5, 6 o'clock in the morning for the first African sunset as a group. Oh my God. Just out of this world. And then spent some time in the museum and touring and looking around the ruins and hearing a little bit about the ancient culture. Now, one of the reasons we love traveling with someone like Louise, or particularly Louise, is because she goes into channel and brings through the deeper ancient knowledge of the land and the star beings also, who have been very, very connected with Earth and our planet. And a lot of that history has been wiped out or covered over. So the hidden history of our planet comes through during our tours. And so we get the Indigenous, the cultural history, we get the ancient history, then we get the star history and the deeper non-disclosed public version.
This is fascinating. Now, Heather, you're totally awake and aware when Lou goes into trance. What I'm fascinated about hearing this is the traditional healers in Africa. What do they think of Lou when she's doing that? They must be intrigued.
Good question. I think they've a couple of the ones that were there. One that I remember specifically just sort of wandered off and tuned out. I think it's very confrontational. So we tend to do it within our own group setting. Yeah. We tend to be much more private and respectful of their culture and do it within our own group setting. Our driver guide is totally on board. He's a part of it. And that was sort of a bit accidental from last time, but it's worked out really well. So we tend to seclude into our own group and create that.
See, I mean, if I may just interject here, again, speaking to you, Susan, you know Africa, you know the traditions. It's very uncommon for a white woman to have the gifting of shaman or witchery or the witch doctor type sort of thing, the scene. And so it's very uncomfortable for the African man or even the African woman who naturally holds that position to see somebody coming onto their ground, their space, and doing this. So I do try to honor that. And if I can find out who it is, I try to connect with them first and say, this is what I'm doing. I don't want to do, and prepare the space. And normally at that stage, if I've been able to create a link with them, they're okay about it. They'll hang around. But if I haven't been able to identify who it is, then we do get this little bit of an uncomfortable sort of thing. And we do try to respect where we are.
So we had enough time on this tour to do our own thing, and which we did.
Yeah.
So
what I understand is what I love about both of you is that you're extremely respectful of whichever country and culture you go into, and where you actually make sure that you are one with the earth and with energy and the light, and you know that you're not going to overstep anything within the bounds of other people's traditions. And I respect you both for that. And thank you for sharing that with me, both of you. And what I love is the ability to take a group of people to, in particular, to a third world country, to be able to uplift and generate income for these various places that you actually visit. Because I'm very aware that when you go to these reserves, these game reserves, these places throughout Africa, that whatever a foreign tourist is putting in there is actually uplifting and helping the community. So that is an incredible contribution that you're giving as well as going back to Mama Africa, where the cradle of man was actually created. And that is so inspiring, and no wonder you have Full House, where people are actually coming back to you and asking you when the next trip is.
Well, thank you, Susan. And it's an absolute honour. One of the first things we do is we present ourselves to the guardians of the land, and we open up. We say we've come in peace, we've come in balance, we come to give, not to take, to receive, to learn, to share from heart. And we find once we've done that, the land opens up. In Zimbabwe, just a short story, got on the road, driver got lost, weird things were happening, and I went, my goodness, we haven't introduced ourselves to the land. Come on, everyone, out. We got out of the van, we gathered in a circle, and we spoke to the guardians of the land. All of a sudden, someone appeared, showed us the right direction. The fuel stop, the black market fuel stop, by the way, in Zimbabwe was over there. We got directed, and we were back on the road after being lost for over an hour. And all the gateways, everything opened, and we arrived at our destination. And it's because we're excited. Oh, goodness, we haven't introduced ourselves to the land. And it's a very simple thing. People forget about that when they're traveling, or people are not aware. It's really important to connect with the guardians of a new land that you're traveling and bringing a group through. And we're responsible for our group and the welfare of our group on our tours. And we take that very seriously. When it comes to the energy that is we're being created. And we talked to our group with that because they were responsive, and wow, did we have an amazing time. The energies just opened up then and went, here they are, and shared.
So Great Zimbabwe, of course, is a fascinating place to go to as well. And, there's all sorts of tales of King Solomon's mines and all sorts of exotic romantic things, or tales of the Chinese travelers who used to be able to go up the great rivers and get there as far as where this incredible building is, that nobody really actually knows where it comes from. When you're in there and you actually speaking to the guardians of the land, and Lou is channeling, is there any record of the ancient entities from that very special building that is such a mystery to most of us?
In a word, Anunnaki.
Say it again.
Anunnaki.
Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki.
Anunnaki. Some of your listeners may be familiar with the Anunnaki, the ancient race who came in to mine the gold and to clone a slave race. Okay, it's not a pretty story. If you wanted a bedtime story around this, guys, it's not really happening, but it's something that needs to be talked about.
And so there's a lot of information that has come through. A lot more is going to come through. And if you want to get my book, it's all in my book.
That's brilliant. And you must get Lou's book. What we are doing right now is talking about Anunnaki. And when I first met Heather and Lou, they spoke about the team as we keep on talking about the team. And I sort of said to them, well, where does your team come from? And they said, from the stars. And I said, tell me more. I was fascinated. So how close are the stars in an African sky to both of you? And tell us more about your team.
The stars very, very present, but also the earth very, very present too. I fell in love with the land. I had a complete surprise when I went there in 2014, I think.
2013 was our first time.
2013, 2017, our second time,
2019.
and now 2019. And I fell in love the first time. I only bought the tickets to take Lou to meet her mum, you know, and I ended up falling in love and then went back, fell in love. So for me, I go into the land. I'm very much a Gaia person and I connect into the land. But the stars, and Lou had experiences with this as a child growing up in Zimbabwe and being very, very connected. So your team and the stars and the connection.
My team, I felt, as I said, referred to a little bit earlier on in the conversation, as a 3, 4, 5-year-old playing in the backyard in Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, growing up. Sampa, these energies or these children would just appear. And they'd come to play. But our games were literally out of this world. I mean, I would be sitting in the sandpit, and part of me knew I was in the sandpit, but a bigger part of me was up in a ship. And I was controlling the ship. I was giving orders on the ship. People were listening to me. They were attentive to what was coming out of my mouth. Other times I would be in America, cowboys and Indians. Other times I would be in a village somewhere by huge mountains. Other times I would be in a space, in different places. And I would go to my mother and I'd go, this is what I'm experiencing. And she would go, oh, good imagination. But to me, it was real. I could smell, taste, hear all of the things that were going on. As I grew up, these sort of sensations and energy stayed with me till I was about 11 when I shut things down through a death in the family. I became very traumatized. When I reawoke, when I was here over in New Zealand in about 2008, the energies reintroduced themselves to me, and Safita, who I knew as a Dharmas and as a Dharma Saint Germain, came back to me. He was introduced back to me by Katumi, and I looked at him, and the first word out of my mouth when I looked at his energy, once he fully revealed himself to me, I was Sandy, because that was the name I called him in the sandpit, because my little child brain couldn't pronounce his name, but it was like, oh, Sandy,
So it was the same energy.
It's the same energy that I used to play with. Where do they come from? They're ascended masters. They've lived on this planet before. They've had multiple lifetimes, but they've chosen to not cross over the bridge of flowers, to not be recycled in incarnation by going to the light. They retain their energy, their consciousness, their free will on this side of the veil to assist humanity through people like myself, through people like Heather and others around the world, to teach and assist humanity to get from one layer and one level of understanding into another level up until full awakeness. We do also have people like Platorans or energies like Platorans who...
I was about to say we have the galactics as well, so that's different.
Platorans comes from... he said to me that his planet is the star that we call Atlas in the Pleiades constellation. That's where he comes from. He did try to tell me the proper enunciation of that, and I was like, I'll just keep to Atlas. I don't want to bastardize the language too much, but very gentle, very pure, very intensely beautiful and honorable beings, We've got the galactics. I've had Ashtar speak through me, Ashtar of Ashtar Command. I've had some of the other commanders of the Ashtar Command speak through me. I've had some Lyran beings speak through me. I'm channeling the Lyran Keeper of Time to relate the story of the Lyran so that we can see how it fits into our own experience, our own individual sort of world, if we want to call it a world. There's so many different sort of things. I have the beautiful angelic speaking through me, Archangel Michael. I have Raphael. So it's not that I'm trying to run a list off my fingers and say, aren't I special? It's just, when I first started this, it was I wasn't told, oh, you can only have one. So I was like, okay, let's go for this, It's like, typical African. Let's go for it. How much can I do,
Yeah, and I wasn't told that either. I said, well, let's bring it on. Who's out there? Who are we connecting
So,
with?
as long as the energy that comes to me and asks to speak to me comes in the pure energy of the Christed energy, of the light, and goes through the test. Now, there's a gauntlet that they've got to go through before I open my mouth and let them speak through me. One, they've got to get through Heather. Okay, Heather does the challenges. They've also got to get through Safita. Now, so if Safita says, don't trust this one, that's it. Doors closed, bolted, latched, nothing coming through. But more importantly than that, Susan, is I have the prerogative at any time, with even the ones that I trust, to say, no, I'm not channeling at the moment. I'm tired. My body's not right. I'm not in alignment. No, it's not going to be a good thing. And they respect it. There's no forcing. There's no, you will do this. If an energy does that, then to me, I kind of ask who's in control, who's in control of the vessel. So,
yeah, that's very clearly a bad energy, and it's not part of your team. It's something from outside. And something else that I having spoken to both of you on various occasions, and everything that you have shared with me, and I feel that I should actually have a series of about 10 podcasts with you both, because there's so much to talk about. But Heather, you with your love of Gaia, of Mother Earth, your team are grounded. And this is what I love about what I love about the two of you is we have Lou from the stars, who is light and air and electric energy, and we have you from the earth and Mother Earth and this beautiful maternal type energy, and you are such an amazing combination together. We know that Lou comes from Zimbabwe and from Mama Africa. We haven't established where you come from and where your tradition comes from, which of course I know. And I have a great affinity and love for your country. So I would love you to actually let the public know where you were born and how you actually started to transform into this incredible shaman.
I was born in the beautiful Aotearoa of New Zealand in the Pacific, and in the lower South Island in a place called Dunedin, and I grew up in a place called Mosgiel on the Taieri Plains, which is a very white, middle-class farming community. And then I arrived. Whoops. And my mother always... I was the first surprise packet. She said, you were such a surprise, but we're pleased to have you. Mum was only 19. She was a young mum as well. And Mum and Dad were very happy to have me, but I was apparently awake, like, here I am. And I felt like I knew and could see and could connect with things too. And I had a lot of experiences as a young child with energy. And I grew up loving nature, loving the land, loving being outside. So I would play in our backyard and beyond, because our backyard beyond the street, because it was a new town being built from the ground up for young couples, was farmland. So all us kids used to play in the farmland. And Mum decided not to take me to the kindergarten because I was having so much fun with the other kids in the street, just playing outside. And then I had to go to school, and that was horrible. I had no idea why anyone would want to go. I felt like I was in a box. I was like traumatized. I was traumatized going to primary school.
Apparently, most starseeds or walk-ins have this attitude where they think well, they're old spirits anyway, and they've been rebirthed into this human body, and they sort of think, well, I know all of this stuff. Why are you sending me to school so I can understand what you say? Oh, carry on. Let's know more about your story.
Well, and that's exactly true. And what I've come to know about school is it's actually a sausage factory, and I didn't want to be another sausage. So that's why I was rebelling. And I actually remember, I do remember at 5 or 6 years of age walking home on the gravel footpath, because it was such a new town, we didn't even have a footpath over that side yet. And remember thinking, what dropped into me, and we've actually done a recent live with on this, was, oh no, not this again. I'm here on earth again. I have to go through this again. Now, what 5 or 6 year old thinks that? This was my higher self going click. And I went, oh my God, no, not this again. And then I remember shutting down. My God, that was even worse, I think, or not, I don't know. And that was it. So I was locked into the patterning, the matrix.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I grew up riding horses and playing outside and getting into trouble as a teenager, as you do, and all of that. And I really, I mainly enjoyed my childhood, but I still felt I was a misfit, and I was always at school challenging things. So social studies at high school, that they would give you this is the facts as we know it are this. And I'd go, excuse me, miss, what about da, 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 da? And they didn't have an answer. They never had an answer for anything that I had a question about. And I knew they didn't, which is why I kept asking. And, and so it was like they'd try and miss my hand in the end to go to the next person behind who had a nice question with a regular answer. So I was a pain in the ass. And then they said, next year will you come back and be a prefect? I said, what, a defect? What do I want to do that for? I'm leaving school.
Defect.
I was not playing the game, I was sort of half playing the game. It was like, so, I ran off and worked for a radio station in the accounts department. That was a mistake, but never mind.
In the accounts department.
Exactly. I wanted to be a radio announcer, so I applied to be a radio announcer or a copywriter. And they basically, without quite saying it, in 1979, it was women don't do that. So I ran away.
Women can do anything.
I ran away to Australia where my mother was born. You see, this is my affinity to this beautiful land. So, and I just was lost. Susan, I was lost for years. I just was lost. I just mucked around. I didn't have any focus. I wasn't sure what sometimes people were saying out of their mouth and what was in their head was two different things. I got confused. I'd had a lot of experiences as a kid with entities and energies. I could see things and sense things. I'd shut most of it down. And then at about 28, I got really sick. They call it myalgic encephalomyelitis. I like saying that. I've practiced the pronunciation. Can you have a go? It just means...
See, I couldn't even say metaphysics earlier on.
No, but you just did it. So that's really like chronic fatigue syndrome or something like that. And there was a whole epidemic of chronic fatigue syndrome or something or other, flu or whatever. And basically my immune system broke down, but I knew I was going to get sick. I could feel it in the energy that something was going to happen to me, and I did. So I went from Australia back to New Zealand and stayed with my family, and I had to heal myself because the medical profession didn't have a clue, and they wanted to prescribe me vitamin B. That's very nice. But antidepressants. So I said, well, I'm not taking that. I know how sensitive I am to chemicals, and I'm only depressed because I'm trying to get well, you idiots, and you can't help me. So I went on this internal journey, and it took 10 to 12 years. I'm serious. I became the hermit, and I went into meditation. I went into my life stopped as I knew it, and I went inside myself and started to discover why I was here, who I was, and how to heal. More importantly, the healing. So I went on a self-healing journey, and that's where a lot of my healing came about. But this is a short podcast, and I don't want to take it over completely. But during that healing journey, I discovered some of my giftings as a self-healer, therefore the ability to help others with their healing journey, their energy healing, their healing of the mind, their healing of their health, their healing of moving through trauma. And it was during this time that I also discovered and remembered that the entities that I'd encountered as a child were entities that had meddled with me and were extraterrestrial beings that had illegally come in and taken me as a child. And part of the reason I had got sick and my immune system had become compromised is because of the meddling that had happened. So I had to reclaim all that and heal myself, and also share with others how to do that if they wanted to. And I just grew from strength to strength to strength. And they came when I was 44 and they tried it again. And we would know them as the Greys. They're the workers of the reptilian energies. I'm not sure what sort of podcast this target audience is going out to, but this is the facts. And one of my core values is being real and authentic and honest. And I find by doing this, sometimes people will identify and go, oh my God, oh, I want to speak more to her about that. So by healing myself, then they came to me when I was about 44, up through the bedroom floor, these 5 or 6, what we know as the Greys, and basically the paralysis set in again. And I just said, you can't touch me. I am my sovereign. I am being. You must go. And they disappeared. Then they came up closer to the bed, and I thought, geez, and I couldn't move. And if anybody's had paralysis, and I wasn't asleep, I was in a paralysis state. I was really aware, very clear, like speaking to you. But I was in a dimensional state of clarity, but I had the paralysis. And this time I went, that's it. And I shot from my heart this energy. And I said, if we had a contract, it's over, it's gone, you must go. You are not welcome. And they disappeared and they haven't returned. Which is great. And so, and on the story, this adventure continues to grow, different energies and beings, many of them very benevolent, via Louise or other energies I've seen have been very helpful.
That must have been really frightening. And to have the strength of character and understanding from your years of self-healing that the energy from your heart had the strength to get these creatures, whatever they are, away from you, is really interesting. Do you do a lot of heart-centered healing with your clients?
Yes, I do. And I don't even call it heart-centered healing, but it naturally comes. And you've got to realise that the ETs, the benevolent, fiddling ones that are trying to get into our psyche, love drama and love fear. So the more we can clear our own fear and drama from our own psyche, our own energy, the better, because the less chance they've got of interfering with us.
Sorry, I think you meant to say malevolent, not benevolent.
Well, that was a new word.
Well, the one thing I know with both of you, universe has put you both together as two extremely powerful energies. And that on its own, as a combination for your clients, is really a great gift, because there's not just one of you, there's two of you. And one of you deals with Gaia, the other one with what we can call it God, universe, whatever, from the stars or whatever. And it's a combination of this incredible energy force that actually can help people to heal. And you are two shamans. You come from two ancient continents. Africa, for you, Heather, with the ancient wisdom from that. Louise, and New Zealand for you, Heather, with the ancient culture of the Maoris. This is wonderful. I love this.
not many people may realise that New Zealand or Aotearoa is in fact part of the new or old Lemurian continent. So we got, as much appreciation I have for our Maori culture, we go further and deeper back than that. And that planet or that continent, Zealandia, was seeded by the Palladian Lemurian mix. And that has come through in a lot of teachings we've had over the last 10 years too, via Louise and even the Cryon channel, Lee Carroll via Cryon has mentioned New Zealand's Lemurian connection. And it is ancient.
And it's actually quite unique that when I first came to New Zealand way back, when Heather and I came in 2002, Heather and I met in 2008, and in the sort of like connections that we had there, the channelings that we had just between ourselves that we recorded, she asked a question of the council of many councils. She said, how old is New Zealand? How big is New Zealand? Give me some history about it. She's basically testing me and testing the energies that came through. And they made a comment that the land that we live on of New Zealand is much smaller than what it once was, that it was a continent. It was huge. But when you look at it and you look at the maps that everybody's got, you've just got these two little islands, right? But all of a sudden now, what's been in the news is that the fact that Zealandia was a continent. New Zealand was much bigger and it sunk way back then. And they're all sort of like, so all you're getting all the scientific terms now. But what I love is that something will come through me, or I'll hear a channeling from somebody else and I'll go, yeah, that resonates with me. And there's no science proof or no medical proof or no anything like this. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, you happen to read something in the paper or on, your news feed or whatever, and it's like, boom, and you go, oh, yeah, I remember that coming through me 6 years ago, But it's not just a rub my chest and I'm so good and all the rest of it. It's just great to have that confirmation that there is this depth of truth that is coming through, even if it takes, mankind a couple of years to catch up.
So, I can totally resonate with you there, Lou, because my very first trip to New Zealand was in 2008. And I'd actually traveled from South Africa to New Zealand to visit my aunt who was dying. And in the course of this time, she was in Christchurch. In the course of this time, I had a chance to get to travel around a little bit as well in between looking after her. And I got to the southernmost tip of South Island. And I just took this great big breath and stepped back, and I felt it was total déjà vu. I knew I'd been there before. And I started to understand all of the area. I could actually even walk to a place or go to a place, and I knew where it was, and it was just as if I'd lived there all my life. And, as a healer myself and a person who has these sort of abilities, it still fascinated me that this was as if this was my country.
Yeah.
So I can resonate with you, Lou, there, because obviously you were meant through law of attraction. You were meant to be with Heather, and Heather's from that part of the world. As we've said, 2 ancient continents and 2 ancient spirits as well. I mean, both look gorgeous, by the way. But what I mean is, you are starseed and all that.
Hang on, let's just get those ancient rituals out of the way.
Well, we dressed up because we thought this was a visual podcast.
It's not visual, girls, but anyway, you can do your hair if you like. I love it. But what interested me is many years later, when I actually met our mutual friend Heather, she said to me, "Well, Susan, it's a no-brainer." She said, "It's a porthole. That's where walk-ins walk in." And she said, "You've been a walk-in various times. You come in as a grown-up spirit and you take over somebody else's body." Yeah, everybody listen to this. And she said, "It's a no-brainer." She said, it's where you come from. She said, that's where you walk in. I thought, oh, this is bizarre.
What part of New Zealand was that?
The south end of
Right, the
The very south end of South Island.
Bluff.
Yeah. So apparently there's a walk-in porthole there.
Oh,
A walk-in talking place.
See if I can find any friends.
Yeah, you should.
I've got cousins that live down there.
Well, I tell you what, you got me. I'm a friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know something else that really fascinated me is when I was going, because I have a passion for art and antiques and stuff like that, and ancient cultures as we do, and from the age of being a very little girl, I was always drawing these sort of designs. And nobody really could understand. They thought, well, are they sort of Persian or Indian? Or I get to go and look in all the Maori culture museums, and there are my drawings everywhere. The fish hook, the swirly curly sort of the earth circle and everything. And I was blown away. I looked at these things and I thought, I've been drawing these since I was tiny.
Wow.
It took me until 2008 to figure that out. So that's when you awaken your mind magic. You start having this sort of awakening period where you start to recognize yourself.
Absolutely.
And you start to say to yourself, I'm not that weird.
No, not at all. I mean, I feel less weird now that there's more people around me like you two, for starters. No, it's actually good. The world's opened up big time. I remember when I was first going through my healing training and stuff like that, and I used to have earthbound souls attached to me and see things, and all sorts of weird stuff was happening. And I had a partner at the time. I used to talk to her about it, and because she loved me, she'd listen, but she'd shake her head, not shaking it physically, but inside I could see her going, and I felt very much on my own until I met Lou, really, and we started exploring together, and and there are more and more people waking up, and this is an exciting magic moment. There are more people waking up, and it might not be that they have the same experiences as us. We're unique, and that's fine. Everybody's unique, but they're waking up and asking the pertinent questions now, and listening to the answers, and not just taking the mat newspaper answer as the answer anymore, which I find very exciting.
Absolutely.
I do too. And the other exciting part is we are very fortunate to have the internet. And we're very fortunate that the whole wide world is a tiny world now. However, we've always had that internet. It is interconnection of this incredible energy force. And if once you've actually awakened and you realize that we are all one, and we are one with the spirit as well, universal spirit, or Gaia as well. And when we start to understand that, we become calmer. We start to love ourselves more. We start to love other people more as well, and have this ability to be able to self-heal and have this recognition that the rest of the world out there has a right to know this. And when we stop the technology thing and remove ourselves from that and start to deal with ourselves personally, our self-awakening and our self-healing, things become so much better for us. We become limitless. We start to understand the dream world as well, the dream time of being able to move forward and create the lives that we truly want to live.
Absolutely, absolutely. Totally agree with you. And I think, taking time away from social media is a really important part of it. Social media can serve us so well in talking and communicating, but there is so much mixed messaging and confusion and dogma and attack out there. Also, it's really important just to put it aside and go on the inward journey, the self-meditation. In fact, we had a channeling recently that came through in our Tuesday group. We've got a formal Tuesday group that we run. And we labelled the second one, it was by Katumi Lal Singh, withdraw your sensories to rediscover yourself. And he was talking about the human sensories, where we get so enamored with smell and taste and visual and having to have this or do this or this person or who likes me and who doesn't. We've become so embroiled in having that self-aggravation or appreciation, I should say, coming back all the time in all sorts of sensory ways, that we've forgotten to go inward. And going inward is such an important part of discovering who we are, because this is really a hologram. It's a bunch of moving molecules. Everything. We are consciousness in essence, soul consciousness in essence. And what does that mean? And how do we know who we really are and what we're doing here if we're always looking to be appreciated from the outside world reflecting back to us? We're not going to otherwise.
This is the truth. Now, when you come into explaining this, when you're having your workshops, what is it that you actually teach your clients so that they can understand it themselves better, like we understand ourselves?
Well, we've got various different workshops that we work with, different labels and things, but self-mastery is our foundation. And we have everything from people who are beginners through to people that have been on their journey for some years, maybe even be professional channelers or metaphysical teachers themselves. So we work with a variety of people, but self-mastery is our base. So we show people by example, hopefully, if we're having a good day, first and foremost, how to attain, or what is self-mastery in their own life, dealing with their emotions, their physical health, their balance, their belief systems, something we call aspect integration. These are things that have come in through other lifetimes that could also be things that prevent us from being who we truly are until we integrate them. One of the big topics that's come up this year has been the integration of the shadow self. So we show people that it's really important to acknowledge the shadow or dark self, the part of self, instead of pushing it away, to integrate that part of ourself and to love ourselves. So we've got various tools, various teachings around this that can step forward to help people.
We also come from the aspect of the fact that you can have all of this and learn it by rote, and it doesn't, it'll help you, but unless you have the conscious awareness, that conscious connection to yourself first and foremost, to your own higher self, and then upwards to the cosmic mind, to the conscious universe, etc., and the outer expansion, it's not going to really amount to a hill of beans, because you can be it's like I've been doing some work on myself, and it's like it's set rote. It's like question one, answer. Question two, answer. Question three, answer. And it's easy to answer the questions. It's not always easy to stop, breathe, look at the question. What is the question asking me? What am I in the moment creating? What am I doing? What am I releasing? Why am I releasing? So you see this, also have this sort of, with people, is like, oh, they just want to get it done and get it done now, because once I've got it done, they can do it, and then they can go with their life, and then, But then you have the people that go, actually, I am that jitterbug, but I want to stop. I want to slow down. I want to breathe. I want to know who I am. And that's going into what Heather was saying, was that with that the shadow self, acknowledging that the yin, the yang is part of who you are.
We've all got our dark side, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And if we want to keep it playing out like a shard of, distraction, or do we want to integrate it and love it into the light part of ourselves? And so that's really a big thing. We've got lots of tools and different methods that we work with people, and everybody's different. So we'll work uniquely with our group, first and foremost, or one-on-one mentoring. And, and there's other things. Some people want to learn how to channel. There are some people like Louise who have a gifting and want to be able to do this in a safe environment. There are others like myself who want to channel more of their higher self energy. So we do those sort of workshops as well. We do the energy healing and the energy healing training, because a lot of people love to work with an energy healing modality. So we teach them what our Pleiadian friends actually showed us, and we call it the continuation.
Continuation, cosmic healing.
I was very fortunate to do a year's training with Heather in energy healing, and I'm talking about the ability to understand where you work, and it's pure and it's easy to use once you know how. And what I love about both of you as well is your passion. And you want to share your gift, and clearly we do have to share our gifts when we become aware of our limitless ability on this planet. And what I would really like you both to share with me right now is, how can people get in touch with you? What is your website? And do you have any emails or anything like that people can actually get in touch with you and start this journey to understand themselves, thanks to your wonderful mentoring?
Sure. Well, It Is Cosmic is our brand name. So you can go to the website, itiscosmic.com. And if you can't remember that, you go Heather and Louise Reiss-James or on Facebook, and you can contact us that way. We've also got YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all under It Is Cosmic. And we've also got our email address, info@itiscosmic.com.
So that is info@itiscosmic.com. And you can find them on their website as well. And I can assure you, these are two incredibly fascinating, talented, and creative women. What I haven't shared with you yet, and I will in another podcast, is the fact that Heather and Lou are funny. They are really funny. And Heather's a stand-up comedian, and they have this ability to do these amazing shows. They do the most incredible talks as well, and they are just the most delightful couple as well, and they're so in love. And I love seeing people in love, because how does the world work? The world lives on pure, unconditional love. And if we could actually realize this world would be a much happier and healthy place for us all to live in.
Can we just say it's our 4th wedding anniversary coming up this weekend?
On the 21st.
Well, congratulations, both of you. And 4 years is a good years that you spent together, and you deserve each other. And I'm so happy and grateful to have you as my very dear friends. And thank you so much for being in my life. So I'm going to actually wind this up now, and I'm going to get you both back again, because there's nothing like talking about alien nations.
We could talk about lots of interesting
Absolutely.
stuff. We'd love to talk with you about it.
Absolutely.
So, Heather and Louise, I'm going to say goodbye to you now, and thank you so much for being on my podcast. I do appreciate it so much.
Namaste.
Namaste, both of you, and thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back soon with another fascinating podcast with Heather and Lou. Why ever not? Bye, Heather and Lou. Thank you.
That's Awaken Your Mind Magic for another week. If anything you've heard today has really impacted you and you want to know more, or you would just like to connect with me, then visit my website, awakenyourmindmagic.com, and reach out for a free one-on-one discovery session with me.
Silver on the outside, silver on the outside, gold on the
I'll be discussing more tools to unlock your dreams and live a limitless life that you would truly love to live. I'm Susan Kathleen, and this has been Awaken Your Mind Magic.